Hi, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to School of Scarlet. I'm so happy to have you here today. I'd like to welcome all our new subscribers and all our returning subscribers. Thank you so much for tuning back in. And if you're a new viewer or a new subscriber, thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope that you will stick around. So today we're going to be talking about a very popular topic. And so this is the counterpart to a very popular video that I just made about the feminine and what she requires of her masculine. And so this is the video that's going along with this one, although we will flip it around to what the divine masculine requires in the feminine. And so in the previous video that I had made, I'll link that in the comments and in the description down below if you haven't watched it. In that video, I talked about what the feminine requires of her masculine. This would be the divine feminine. So there's a lot that goes into that. So you want to check that video out to get all of that information. So I want to kind of preface this video like I did the previous video that I made. This video is not meant for just, let's say, if you are a man to be in the masculine energy or female to be in the feminine energy. These energies are held within all of us, both of them, feminine and masculine. So when I'm talking about these, whether I'm talking about what the divine masculine requires of the feminine or vice versa, it's going to be in a relationship wise, is what I'm kind of portraying a picture around. But let's say you're not in a relationship. Let's say that it is just you, which is really just our reality anyhow. We are playing with these energies within our own selves as well. So I kind of talked about in other videos how at times I go very much into my masculine energy, at other times I'm in my feminine. So we'll kind of keep that theme here today and kind of drop those barriers. This isn't about gender. This isn't about, is this gender better than this one, or does this one have to do this or have to do that? No, it's very fluid and it's very relative, but it does occur. These energies are always happening. What varies, what's relative, is in what expression it's occurring. So I mentioned a study about a fruit fly and how its brain could actually be changed by different hormones and things that were injected into it. And so basically this can happen, that we can be expressing in one body and have the brain of maybe a different gender. So we're not talking about that here today, although you can keep that mindset for yourself if you're a female in a relationship or a male in a relationship. You kind of want to just worry about your own self. So what is happening with you? What do you identify most with, the feminine or the masculine energy? You're going to need both. So in this video, I'm going to talk about it in a relationship kind of way, and it's going to sound more of the traditional way, but you take it for what it is and you apply it to yourself depending on what your circumstances are. You may not have a typical male-female relationship, or you may not have a relationship at all. But there is a lot of pointers, a lot of information here that you can take up on. This is actually happening throughout everything. You can actually see the male and feminine and masculine energy throughout all our plant life, all our animal life, within the rocks, within the objects, within everything. This is how everything happens. This is how everything comes into creation. So I've written down kind of a list about the feminine because I really want to go into this topic. I have a lot to share. So let's get into it here today. So I've written down that there is an interplay between the masculine and feminine in all the appearances. So all the appearances that you see appearing all around in your reality are expressing as either masculine or feminine, okay? And they can switch and they can change, but they're usually appearing this way. If you notice within animals, if you notice within plants when you were in school and you learned about science, all of these things, we have our feminine and our masculine sort of energies that are occurring. So I want to kind of paint a picture like I did in the previous video. Again, kind of reemphasizing what these energies really are. This isn't about love. This isn't about, some kind of airy-fairy, romantic thing. We're talking about the absolute truth of reality here. So what we're talking about here, when the masculine energy is, it's a constricting energy. It's a pulling energy, like a gravity. It keeps everything together within our reality. Okay, so it is what is containing all of reality. I've talked about that the masculine or the feminine requires a masculine that provides a container, a good container for her. For a feminine human, that would be a home, right? But I ended that video with talking about how the masculine penetrates the world. So, what the masculine energy is doing when he's penetrating the world is not just giving his ideas out into the world, like I was talking about, he's also containing the whole world, meaning he's containing all of the matter that you're seeing, all of the relative appearances you're seeing. All of that is masculine energy. If we didn't have that, we wouldn't be able to have all of this energy moving so quickly in one spot to make what it is that you're seeing, which I talk about the illusion. And so science talks all about this. And so I'm not going to get all into that, but if you're interested in that, we are not made of physical matter. So how does that happen? Okay. And so all of that is happening through energy. And so these energies, the way that I see them from my eyes, I see everything a little bit more in the feminine way. So I'm going to describe it that way to you. And so what I see is the masculine is containing all of those particles, everything that you see and hear, everything that is, into what it is, keeping it here so we can see it. Okay, that's just an energy that's happening. What the feminine does with that energy, now the masculine has contained everything into one space. The feminine uses whatever the masculine has created and contained and makes it radiate, makes it beautiful. It makes it go out into the world, okay? So I've written down some examples here, and let me see what I had written down because I had written down quite a few. I wrote down the star example. So for example, if we're thinking about masculine energy in the universal sense, when we're talking about a star is a bunch of stardust, dust, and gases, right? And so that really isn't, it's just floating around there. It's not contained, as we could say. So what the masculine energy does is begin to contain those things, contain those gases, contain the stardust into one spot, contain it into where it is vibrating and moving so rapidly that it is in one spot. It's contained now, and it is something that we could actually see. So what happens next to that containment there of the gases and the dust? In this case, with it being a star, at that point now that everything is contained, a new energy now sparks. The new energy that sparks is the feminine counterpart. The feminine counterpart sparks, okay? Same thing happens within us, our hearts. So we have a spark. And when we have that spark, the star now illuminates and it can radiate. It can radiate its beautiful rays, its beautiful light out into the world. So that's the feminine. The feminine is the radiating feature, okay? And the life, that spark. The masculine is the creator, the unifier, the structure, the gravity, the pull, the containment. That is the masculine. So that's an example within our universal sense of feminine and masculine energy. And so another example that I wrote down is breathing. So when we breathe in air, let's take a breath. So you can see that I'm breathing in through my nostrils, through my nose, and I'm filling myself up, filling up my lungs with air. That's the masculine energy. It takes in what's there. Okay. We're still holding it there. So when I start releasing, that's the feminine. And so when it's contained in the lungs, when the air is contained in the lungs, it's there, it's ready. What happens next? It flips polarities. And now here comes the feminine energy to release. Okay. Constricting energy is very tight. You can feel it as you breathe in, that you feel this tightness, this holding. And as you exhale, you release, you radiate all of this breath into existence. And in doing so, you feel a relaxation as well within your body. So there's a lot of components and pointers and elements to this that you can pay attention to throughout this discussion. So that's the star and breathing, okay? And the last one that I wrote in our plant life or in our natural life would be plants. Our plants kind of show us this as well. So the masculine energy within the plants would be the roots. The roots are sturdy, they're planted, they are there in the ground. They find a good spot and they ground themselves. That's what the masculine does. And then it begins to take in and collect all the nutrients that's going to need. It's collecting. It's getting everything it needs to create the perfect container, create the perfect nourishment that it needs to bring those materials in. So the materials that are being brought in, the water, the nutrients that are being sucked through the roots, that is what the masculine has brought in. So the feminine energy now comes in, flips that polarity. Now we got the feminine energy has sparked. Now the feminine energy is working with the water, is working with the sunlight, is working with the nutrients that are coming up from the roots, and it's growing. It's growing, it's radiating itself, it's making leaves, it's making itself beautiful, it's maybe creating itself a bud, then all of a sudden it shines as a flower and it's radiating beauty out into our world. And nourishment and many things, bees and bugs and everything are attracted to this flower because it is radiating and attracting. That's another quality of what the divine masculine looks for in the feminine. They look for a magnetizing quality. To be a feminine, a divine feminine, you will be magnetizing as a person even. So while you're out in the world, people will want to come to you. People will want to talk to you. People will smile at you. So if you're finding that that's not happening, then you're not so much in your feminine energy. Okay. When you're in your feminine energy, your eyes are brighter. Your skin is brighter. You look healthy. You look radiant. You look alive. A healthy feminine takes time to take care of herself. She takes care of her body. She takes care of her hair, her skin, every little bit of herself she takes care of. Not in vain, not because of some selfish reason, but because she loves herself and she loves everything in that same way. She nourishes and she takes care of all, including and starting with herself. So that's a very big pointer. When you're in your feminine energy, you will have a lot of time and you will have a lot of more of a pool, a lot more of a desire to take care of yourself, to dress yourself nicely, to present yourself beautifully in a way that you can radiate and attract all of the people, all of those people that need your love and nourishment, because that's what the feminine does. So it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a female. I've seen many men that are very magnetizing, very beautiful, that bring people in. So it's not about genders. We could do this on either gender, okay? But generally, this energy is going to be that way. It's going to be very magnetizing. So if you're a feminine or male or female trying to see, am I in my feminine energy? You're going to want to reflect to your appearance. What do you look like? Are you taking care of yourself? Do you take care of your skin, your teeth, your eyes, your hair? Do you take time to dress yourself in a way that's attracting and beautiful to you, that will show your unique nature, that's authentic to who you are? Are you doing those things? And so those things are just clues to whether or not you're more in your feminine or more in your masculine energy. When you're more in your masculine energy, you'll have more of a uniform. You'll be kind of automated because those things take away from the brain power you need to create all those structures, create all of those rules and things that people need to follow in the masculine world. So to be a masculine, to run a company, to do these things that usually the masculine does, they don't want to be so tied up in their clothing and all of these things, so they don't focus as much on it. It's just something that naturally happens. So when you're more in your masculine energy, you're wearing clothes that's more practical, more pants, more comfortable clothing, more uniforms, more, like I say, more practical. If it is that you have to dress up, maybe you have a suit, but you're always kind of in that realm, and you have something very easy and predictable. Where the feminine It can be very changing, very unpredictable. You don't know if one day she's going to wear a dress, one day she's going to wear pants, one day she's going to wear jewelry, one day she's not. It's very unpredictable and depending on her moods. The feminine is very flowy and it's very unpredictable and changing from time to time. So that's the difference with those things. So they're just things to pay attention to. And so I have these lists of many things that we can look at here with the feminine. So let's see what else we have here on our list. Okay. So I think we've talked about most of the stuff here on this page. And so I'm going to turn over to my list here. And this is just a list. I'll kind of go down the list with you of qualities that I've written down and things that you will find in the divine feminine. So these are the things that the masculine, the divine masculine, looks for and requires in the feminine. Now, when I say requires, this isn't to trigger you. It's not that you have to be this. It's just that when you're in the realm of being a divine feminine or divine masculine, the other kind of feminines or masculines that are out there in this world will not be able to really even enter your attention. They won't even be in your reality. We actually all live in very different realities. And so these other kinds will not be able to enter. And so this list is really this list. This is the kind of feminine that the divine masculine will be attracted to. This is just an energetic thing. And so she will be in her being, meaning she is able to be here and now in this moment. She isn't in her mind all of the time. She isn't running around all of the time. She's able to be here and now and give you attention. So you'll notice these feminine people that are able to all of a sudden give you all of their attention. And it seems like you're the only person in the world. That's how the divine feminine makes you feel. She makes you feel that you're the only one that she's talking to here and now. She can mesmerize you. She can bring you in. She can bring you nourishment because she slows herself down and gives this space and holds this space for you to really feel that she's totally with you. And that's something you'll only find with the divine feminine, because the feminine that is wounded is very much running around. She can't stay still. She's very much in survival. She's very much in scarcity. She's very much in stress and worry. And so she can't sit here and now and just be. She's always running around. And you can tell in the way she talks because she talks very quickly. You can tell in the way she walks because she walks very quickly. And I know this because I've been in these different states myself. I very much was this wounded feminine for quite a while. And it is a very fast-paced way of being. And we'll kind of get to this here, but maybe I'll touch on it here and now. Things actually move quicker when we move slower. And so the feminine has magic tricks. I call them magic tricks, but they're just facets of reality. When we slow down and we actually are present with what's happening here, everything in our life begins to unfold more naturally and more quickly, as opposed to when we're forcing, efforting, wanting this to happen, trying to make it happen. It's like sitting there staring at a clock, right? When we're staring at this clock, wanting the time to pass, it really only passes slower. But when we stop looking at it and we go off and work or do whatever, all of a sudden the time is passing quickly. We have to release our control over these things. And so the feminine at some point understands this, comes out of that wounding and understands her power in just being. And so you wouldn't think there's power in just being, but there's a lot of power in being. And when you're just in your being state, if you just take time to retreat and be alone with yourself, you will begin to see things shift and change a lot quicker than you did when you were trying to make it happen. So that's just another little pointer from the feminine coming to you, that there is a lot of power in just being. So the next thing would be feeling. The feminine is very much into feeling. So she feels her emotions, as opposed to the wounded feminine who hides from her emotions, who suppresses her emotions, who distracts herself from her emotions, who hides those emotions. The divine feminine knows the power and knows the healing and the releasing that happens in feeling the emotions. So she's very much into feeling. She wants to feel everything. and she would like to feel it for others as well. If other people are hurting, she wants to feel with them. You'll notice a lot of the feminine people, they will do this. They're counselors, they're teachers, they're people that go with others to kind of be with them, help them through these processes. The next thing would be receiving. The feminine receives, and we talked a lot about this in the last video. The male and female each have parts, and so this is just a clue to how everything works. And so not only do we see it within humans, we see it within animals, we see it within plant life, that there is a feminine and there is a masculine, even sex organs that receive, give and receive, and it's very clear that it works this way. And the feminine is the receiver. So the feminine is not the one that goes out and collects and gives to the masculine. She receives. So if you're finding yourself that you're a feminine expression, you identify more as feminine, yet you're always giving more in your resources and things like that, your resources and your energy and your life force, if you're always giving that and you feel that you're never getting anything, then we are in the wounded feminine. So the wounded feminine has thought that she needs to do it all. She's a little bit more into the controlling because she's a little bit more into the masculine energy. She thinks she needs to do it all, like the masculine does it all. So she goes out there and works. She buys gifts for the man or the person she's with. She does all of these things to attract them in these ways, but they're very masculine ways. So they're not natural, so they don't work out. So if you find yourself like that, feeling very depleted, finding that you're giving too much of your life force or financial or something, some kind of resources, then most likely you're more in your masculine, because that's something more the masculine does, is give. The female receives. Okay, so the next thing would be allowing. The female is more into allowing things to happen. She allows things. She goes with the flow. She's like a river. She's like water, and she flows through life. She just goes with it, where the male or the masculine, whatever it happens to be, is more into creating structures, okay? And he sees the value in having structures and having predictability and things like that. So we have all of this. We need all of it, by the way. If I haven't already said it, this is a balance. This is an interplay. This is a balance that we're doing here. Whether you're male or female, we always are going to be using with both. Neither one is better or worse than the other. We need them all. Okay, so the next thing I wrote is she is patient, okay, or he is patient. And so there's patience there. The patience develops, and the patience is something that over time develops more and more. But these are the qualities that a lot of times the feminine has, because she is the one that usually has children, has the children she takes care of. So she needs all of these nurturing qualities, while the masculine generally is out there in the world working or bringing in what is needed in the home. So these are just things that have worked for thousands and millions of years. And so, I find it unusual when people are so resistant to such ideas and get so triggered, thinking that something's being demanded of them. This is just the way things work. And so eventually everything kind of shifts for us as human beings, and we kind of surrender into what is. And so this is what the feminine is doing, allowing. And so that is what everything that we are doing here is, just to learn the process of allowing. So when we're resisting, when we're saying, oh no, I don't have to do that, or that doesn't seem right to me, and this and that. Yes, we can always have our preferences. We can always do this and that. But as life happens, as life begins to mold you and do the things that are happening for you to take you on whichever path you've wanted to go on, then that process of allowing is very important. It's extremely important to surrender to what is and allow what is to happen. And so the feminine has tapped into that and lives from that space. And it is a whole nother way of being than the masculine or the wounded feminine that is forcing, that is trying to control, that is trying to make it happen. And so that is a very much needed energy, but at times we also have to allow. So where is the balance there? So in all of these, I'd like you to kind of think about yourself. Do I have a balance with this? Is this in my life? Am I allowing myself to allow life? Is this something that is part of my life, whether you're masculine or feminine? We all need these aspects. And so the next thing would be flexibility. She's flexible. She's able to work with what she has. You know, you can give her a few items and she can make dinner with that. You know, she's creative and she's flexible in her way of thinking and her mindset. She really can make anything out of anything. It's like she's very much this creation type of energy. And she can move with the wind in a way that is very natural, is very flowy. It's almost like she's in tune with it all. She's become very much in the flow with her kitchen, with her laundry room, with her car, with her job, with her children. She begins to build a flow in life where she's very flexible with everything and is able to move and has had enough knowledge and wisdom throughout time that she can move through things without it really breaking her. Okay. So the next thing would be she's expressive. She expresses how she feels. A lot of times the wounded feminine doesn't speak, doesn't say what she wants to say, or, you know, holds back because she thinks she doesn't deserve it or isn't worthy of it, or thinks that maybe she'll lose the masculine, or maybe she's demanding too much. But the divine feminine is expressive. She always expresses her desire. She always expresses what she's feeling, and she expresses it in a way that's very natural. So the masculine is very used to this and it becomes very normal. And so there's always a communication between the masculine and the feminine, and there's always that flow that creates the magnetism. Okay, and so the next thing is she's healing and nurturing, or he is. So that energy of feminine energy is very healing and nurturing. That energy wants to be with those that are hurt. It wants to talk to those that are sad. It wants to lift other people up. It wants to empower people. It wants to protect those. So it's a very nurturing and healing energy. And that's kind of that mother energy. That's essentially the feminine energy, is the mother energy. And so these are all along these lines. I wrote listening, gentle, passive. These are kind of characteristics and attributes we kind of put towards the mother. So this is all that kind of mothering energy that we would think of in that gentle, loving, patient mother. And not all mothers are like this, of course, but this is essentially what the energy is. So we're just defining it here. And so she's very much also into relationships. She likes to build relationships with others, her family, her friends. She knows people out in the community. She's able to nourish people here and there. She may not spend a ton of time with the grocery clerk or this person or that person, but she's able to nourish them. Even if she talks to them for a couple minutes at the checkout, she is able to connect and have these relationships with people throughout all of the world, all of her reality. She connects and builds relationships at the nail salon, at her children's schools, wherever she's at. She injects herself in some way, and that's a bit of her masculine energy as well, but it is also part of her feminine energy. So you can see some of both of that there. And so she's very intuitive. She uses her intuition. She accesses her heart. She knows when her children aren't feeling well. She knows when something's off with her husband. She knows when something's off in the community, in the world. She feels it in a different way than the masculine. The masculine kind of uses his logic to piece everything together, see what will happen. He goes back into the past, uses history, uses all of these things to come to conclusions, while the feminine uses those things, but as well, she uses her intuition. And so she learns to rely more on her intuition. As she does, it opens up for her and she can see the power in intuition. So the feminine brings us to another kind of way of being, as you can see. And so we've very much been living, especially in the Western world, more in the masculine energy. And we're moving more towards the feminine, is kind of what I've been kind of suggesting here. So if you can see this, comment down below, share with us your experiences of anything changing in your reality, things happening where things seem to be shifting more towards the feminine. These polarities shift, just like the polarity on the poles of the earth. They oftentimes shift here and there, right? Over time, there are these times that for a long time it's this way, and then all of a sudden we see a shift. And so this is just something that happens to come back into balance. And so what could be happening here is we're moving more into the feminine now, because the masculine has done a great job of containing lots of things, but a lot of things need to be released now. the feminine says, hey, you did a good job doing all this, but there's all of this and that, hey, I got to clear this up. So the feminine also tears down things. She breaks things down. She clears things up. So this is a little bit of that dark feminine coming in. And so this is where you will see those structures that weren't working kind of break down. And so it looks like chaos, but actually it's a really nice cleanup job that the feminine is doing for us right now. There's a lot of things that weren't dealt with. We thought were dealt with. We thought, oh, those people are okay. They've gotten over this, or this person has gotten over that, or, it's been resolved. But it hadn't been. And so if it hadn't been, it's going to bubble up to be cleared. And the feminine is going to be the one to kind of do that cleanup job, because she is so nurturing. She is so loving. She is so patient and kind. And so the feminine energy comes in to do that there. We're going to see a lot of that here, whether it's in our world or within our own selves and our emotions and things coming up to be cleared. So let's see what else is on here. That's pretty much the list that I had written down. So you're really going to want to look at things like openness. The feminine energy is very open. So now we're talking about things that we can kind of do here and now to access more of that energy. So if we are more masculine, and we're starting to recognize throughout this talk that, hey, we're more in the masculine energy and we'd like to bring a little bit more of the feminine. So what can we do? We want to be a little bit more open here. And that's just not just physically, but mentally. So you're going to be a little bit more open in the way that you use your body. The masculine is very strict, very straight, very kind of pillar-like I talked about in another video. The feminine kind of moves with a flow, sometimes with a sway. We can kind of see that her body sways. She has movement to her. We're going to want to see some of that within us. So if we're very closed, if we're very much more into the masculine, what can we do now to open up ourselves physically? So one of the things I'm a big proponent about is dancing. So I was very much into my masculine, very, very much into it for a very long time. And so as I was coming out of it, it was part of my natural process. Dance was something that just kind of arose for me. And I began to dance. And in dancing, it opens your body in a lot of ways where it becomes more natural for you to do so. So intuitive dancing at home by yourself, just as an opening for this, is a great way for the masculine to kind of break open from this. If you don't want to do that, maybe as a masculine, you might want to put on some fun music and just work out really hard, or, jog in place, do something like that. Get the body working, open, jump, open your arms, do some movements maybe where you're swimming and really opening up your body, because a lot of times the masculine is very serious and maybe has a very usual routine and only does certain things, and eventually the body gets used to that and the body actually begins to stiffen and it becomes very inflexible. It's not flexible like the feminine. It becomes hard and stiff. But if you remember to every so often bring in the feminine and move your body, dance, swim, do movements where you're opening your body, take little breaks throughout the day and do little exercises and stuff to kind of break up that real dense masculine energy, because the masculine energy is dense. It's almost like a gravitational pull on this earth is what it is. Okay, so let's see. And so we also want to relax and open up energetically in the way that we talk, in the way that we express, just kind of being more open to things as we hear things. A lot of times, if we're very much in the masculine energy, we are very much already defined in our truths. We have already what we believe is true and our beliefs and our values and many things, and that is what it is. We've really worked to come up with what we believe in. So a lot of times people come in with feminine energy and start talking about new things, different things that we hadn't heard of. A lot of times the masculine will shut that down. No, that's not true. It's this. All of these studies that I've already looked into say this. So the masculine, is very factual like them. And he'll just kind of lay it out that way and kind of shut that down. So there's not a lot of openness there for the feminine energy or any new energies, maybe any new insights to come into him, which kind of a little bit of an issue when you're wanting to move along life, because there's insights always happening. So if we're a little bit opening, if we have a little opening to it, then we're going to get a lot more insights. We're going to get a lot more life. We're going to get a lot more movement and a lot more change and beauty and magic in life. Basically, that's what happens. So we want to be open both energetically and physically. Okay, we want to be receptive. We want to be playful in life. We want to be receptive to those things that come into our experience. So it just goes along with what I was just talking about. As those things begin to show up for us, we need to be open to doing them. Maybe we are all of a sudden triggered or open to, hey, maybe we are too much in our masculine. We want to start doing things that are open up our body. And all of a sudden someone invites you to yoga and you never thought you would do it. And usually you'd say no. But why not be a little open and let yourself explore some of these things that arise for you? Because everything that's arising for you is actually arising just for that, for you to have a beautiful experience that's going to unfold into something. So go ahead and take it. Be that yes man or yes woman. Go ahead and take it, see where it goes. All of these experiences are popping up just for you. Okay, so here's some things about the wounded feminine. The wounded feminine has a very much of a defensiveness around her energy. She's very defensive. And so also I'm talking about this because I've also experienced this within myself. When I was more in my masculine energy, I was more defensive. I would enter conversations in a way like I had to protect myself, or I knew something that I felt was true and I wasn't going to change my mind about it. So it was what it was. I wasn't receptive and I wasn't open. So the wounded feminine develops this kind of defensiveness around her. And so that kind of has to soften at some point. That really has to break down into kind of a surrendering at some point where you kind of allow anything. Where I used to be kind of defensive going in conversations or certain conversations, now it doesn't matter what it is. It's all accepted here and it's all valid and it should all be said. No matter if it is against or whatever I'm saying, it doesn't matter. So you kind of switch that when you get more into your feminine. You allow everything, you see the value in everything, and you see how things unfold. So you are patient. You give it time to see, hey, okay, they're saying this. Let's see what happens, right? Maybe it's never been like this. Maybe it's never happened, but the feminine is open and receptive to seeing, is this true? Could this happen? Because we're always evolving. Things are always changing. What was one way, 100 years ago is not that way now. Whether that's just in that we've literally just decided to all collectively change that, or it's physically changed throughout evolution of a certain animal or whatever it happens to be. These things change. And so what was one way is not going to stay that way forever. The only thing that is constant, the only thing that is for sure and absolute is what you truly are. And that is your divine true self. Okay, your God self, that part of you that has always been here, that stillness. That is the only thing that is not going to change. Everything else, you cannot pinpoint it, you cannot know it. You cannot know it, is all I can say. You cannot know anything here. So anyhow, let's move on a little further on to our list of the wounded feminine. So she moves a little slower. Not the wounded feminine, but the divine feminine moves a little slower. The wounded feminine moves very quickly. And I kind of talked about that in a previous little bit that we talked here earlier. The wounded feminine is always in a rush because she's always trying to control effort, thinking that she's going to get ahead or thinking that she's going to miss something. So rather than giving herself time to maybe self-care or slow down or actually listen or be in this moment, she gives all of that up in this idea that she could be missing something if she took the time to take a bath, if she took the time to read a book, if she took the time to actually do her hair or her makeup. She thinks that she's doing more of a service to humanity in running herself ragged rather than taking care of herself. And so I've worked in social work for many years, and I've seen that many people that go into social work a lot of times do it from a wounded energy, meaning that they're doing it in a way to save the world at the expense of themselves. And I've seen women who worked themselves to the bone, were there from the morning to night, even though they didn't need to, hardly got paid anything. Were missing out on actual time with their actual family and children. Like they didn't even spend time with their actual family and children. This woman in particular I have in my mind, she began to lose hair. She had patches and she had lost all of her hair. She was younger than I was, and that had happened to her. She wouldn't slow down, and we were in the same capacity. Her and I started in the same position, and she moved up to a little bit higher position than I did. And so she kind of became my superior for a while, and that's where I noticed the deterioration, because when we were coworkers at the same level, we really enjoyed our job, we had lots of fun, all of this and that. When she moved up to this more manager role, she's changed completely physically. She did not have any vibrancy in her face or skin or hair or anything. She was wearing basically her husband's sweatshirts and stuff. Her hair had fallen out. Lots of things had happened like that. And so basically, she wasn't in her energy anymore. She wasn't taking the time to take care of herself. She was more giving all of her time, her life force, to this social service agency that we worked for. And giving all of her time and energy into that. Sadly, she became pregnant during this time, and she lost the baby very late on into her pregnancy. It was very, very sad. And I think right after that, she decided to take a year. She stepped down from her position, took a year off to recuperate and get herself back. But these things happen, especially to the feminine. These stories are very recurring and very relatable because they happen to most of us, feminine, and masculine. So we go through these things and we experience these losses and hardships and changes within our body and not feeling right and sickness and illness, only to be able to experience the other side of that, health, wellness, and the beauty of actually being in our feminine and taking that year, that time off for ourselves when we need it. So these experiences really only happen to ever show us anything. It's always, life is always showing us things. It's always communicating to us. So the divine feminine that the divine masculine requires is a feminine that can slow down, can take time for herself, can take time for him, can take time for her family when they need it, is able to cook, is able to do things that require time, because the feminine, what she does a lot of times takes time. That's how it becomes so good. In the time and in the love, it becomes good. So it becomes greater and greater, it elevates. So that is very important in the divine feminine that the masculine is requiring. So the divine feminine and the divine masculine actually work together. Like I say, they're creating a balance. So one of the main things that the divine masculine is requiring of the divine feminine is that she work in balance, that she work in cooperation, that she work with him together as a team and in union, almost as one, if not as one at some point. So that is basically what is going on here, is becoming one. And so a lot of times where we see the wounding happening, especially now in society, is where we see that there is a feminine that is overly masculine. And so what happens when a feminine is overly masculine is that she will try to control the home. She will try to demasculate or emasculate the man, or the masculine energy that's in the home, the opposing one or the other one. And so she will do these things and kind of tear down the home in a way, because it's not very clear to her. It's probably not very conscious to her. But these two masculine energies are actually in opposition to each other. When there's two masculine energies, they actually become into competition with each other. Masculine and feminine energy complement each other. They work together. They are actually they elevate each other because they are one, actually. But when we have two masculine, what happens in nature when we have two male moose or, deer, whatever, lions. They go into this battle. They're always in competition with each other. So when we have two masculine energies, it doesn't work. There's no polarity. There's no magnetism. There's no attraction. There's no romance, and there's no spark. Where there's no spark, there's no life. So that will end. So we have to have polarity and spark to create life. That is a very profound concept that I have not gotten into in these videos here on YouTube. But as I talk about the masculine and the feminine, like I did in the beginning of the video, we need these two energies to create this reality that we're currently seeing. So this isn't about man against woman, male against female, any of these things. These are principles and just this is the inherent reality that we live in and how energy moves and happens. And so it's very interesting, this whole thing, how it happens. But we can see that this is happening throughout all of the universe, whether that's within animals, plants, and it can even be seen within objects when we start breaking things down into science and really seeing these electrons and neutrons and things like that. It's very interesting how everything correlates into this masculine and feminine energy that is throughout. So these are just some things to keep in mind, that also if we have too much feminine energy, we can also have the same thing happening. If we have a very feminine man and a very feminine woman, we're also going to have issues there because we're not going to have a good container. And if we don't have a good container, there's no you're always in survival and scarcity. You're never safe. You're never secure. So when we have two feminine energies, those sorts of things also eventually, I would say, fall away and break, or, they're torn down by the feminine itself because it's seen as not viable here. Okay, so we are wanting to create and work together to create this balance that is happening throughout all of the universe. Okay, we're working together to create things here on this universe. So the masculine and the feminine energy, they actually work better together. They're able to accelerate their growth, the way that they are doing things when they have both energies working, and especially when they're both healthy energies. We talk about these wounded, the wounded feminine, the wounded masculine. These are just labels. But when we see these behaviors within expressions, they don't grow as quickly. Okay. So when we're seeing that there's these characteristics of the divine feminine, the divine masculine that have joined up together, you're going to see an accelerated rate of growth in their experience here. They're going to be collapsing timelines, meaning that if they had an addiction, all of a sudden they're not going to have an addiction. If they had an illness, all of a sudden it's going to be healed. If they had problems in the marriage, all of a sudden they're going to be better. If they wanted to have this great career, but it wasn't working out, all of a sudden they're going to have it. Everything, whatever wasn't going to work out, or whatever was the old is going to collapse, and the new is going to come up and build up quickly. Because when you have both of these two energies working together, everything works quickly because it's how it is. It's in balance. So everything's about balance here in this universe. It's about creating a balance. So when I make the title, what does the masculine, the divine masculine, require of the divine feminine? He actually ultimately requires balance. He requires balance with her. He requires union with her. He requires a partnership with her. He requires that complete and total unity as one. Because in doing so, he can then penetrate the world much more, and so can she, because she is doing the same thing. She is actually doing the same thing. She is nourishing the world. She is healing the world. So while he is putting some information, something into this world, he's putting something in, she is also doing that. But she is working with what he's putting in, and she's nourishing the world with it. Okay. So this is a very beautiful partnership that happens throughout our universe, throughout every bit of this existence and reality that we see appearing before us. So the divine masculine requires balance, and he requires this because it is what he has to have to penetrate the world with his full, complete self. And as he does that, he comes into unity and he comes into the realization that he is all of it because it's the truth. So this is a very beautiful thing. This isn't something to pin the masculine against the feminine, to create division, to create issues, to make demands or exceptions. No, it's meant to unify. It's meant to empower. It's meant to bring us back to the beauty of what is already here and now happening. Just see and look and open your eyes to the beauty of polarity. It's happening all around us. And many of us feel separate. Many of us feel lonely. Many of us feel detached or not part of things or excluded. But we're not. We're not. We're part of all of this. We're part of all of this. And when we can see that and we can accept that and we can love who we are, then we realize we've been part of it all this time. And what we've been thinking has just been in our mind. And there's none of that happening here and now. So if you're having trouble seeing clearly, if you're having too much division here, even while listening to this video, if you're finding yourself divided in any way, then I urge you to come back to yourself, to come back to your own sacred heart. That is where the ultimate spark has sparked, in your heart. And as you follow your heart, that spark becomes a flame, and that flame becomes bigger, and it begins to illuminate this world because you are that light, and you're just not seeing it, but you have that light right there within you. So I just want to encourage you today to begin to be that light because you are that light. If anybody's told you different, don't listen to them. You are that light. I promise you, you are. So I love you all. Thank you so much for watching.